November 13, 2017, 10:48 a.m. EST. Global carbon dioxide emissions are projected to rise again in 2017, climate scientists reported Monday, a troubling development for the environment and a major disappointment for those who had hoped emissions of the climate change-causing gas had at last peaked. The emissions from fossil fuel burning and industrial uses are projected to rise by up to 2% in 2017, as well as to rise again in 2018, the scientists told a group of international officials gathered for a United Nations climate conference in Bonn, Germany. Despite global economic growth, total emissions held level from 2014 to 2016 at about 36 billion tons per year, stoking hope among many climate change advocates that emissions had reached an all-time high point and would subsequently begin to decline. But that was not to be, the new analysis suggests. The temporary hiatus appears to have ended in 2017, wrote Stanford University's Rob Jackson, who along with colleagues at the Global Carbon Project tracked 2017 emissions to date and projected them forward. Economic projections suggest further emissions growth in 2018 is likely. The renewed rise is a troubling development for the global effort to keep atmospheric concentrations of greenhouse gases below the levels needed to mitigate the worst effects of climate change. The more we emit now, scientists say, the more severe cuts will have to be later. That's because of the very long atmospheric lifetime of carbon dioxide, which means we can only emit a fixed amount in total if we want to stay within key climate goals. It's sort of, lose 1 year now, you have to pick up 5 years later, said Glenn Peters, one of the study's co-authors and a researcher at the Center for International Climate Research in Oslo. Emissions are forecast to reach around 37 billion tons of carbon dioxide from fossil fuel burning and industrial activity in 2017, said the group, which published the results in the journal Environmental Research Letters and more detailed findings in Earth System Science Data Discussions. The renewed increase is driven largely by more fossil fuel burning in China and many other nations. We've been lucky in the last 3 years with emissions being flat without any real policy driving it, Peters said. If we want to ensure that emissions remain flat, we have to put policies in place. And the second step is to start to drive emissions down. Peters said the 2017 number would be a record high for emissions from fossil fuel burning and industrial uses, such as cement, although carbon emissions from deforestation and land use changes were actually higher in 2015. The scientists also acknowledge some uncertainty in their estimate, meaning that the 2017 emissions rise could be as low as 1% or as high as 3%. All in all, the finding is bad news for global climate policy. The Paris Agreement, now supported by every nation except for the United States, aims to limit the warming of the planet to well below 2 Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and to try to hold warming to 1.5 Celsius. But this requires emissions not just to stay flat but to go down rapidly.